administration is now pushing for an independent investigation as more and more experts question whether the virus did in fact leak from a lab in Wuhan, China. The National Security Council is also investigating the matter, we are told. But Senator Rand Paul told us last hour that he remains a skeptic.
The investigation can't be done by the WHO or an international group, but it also can't be done by Americans who are involved with funding the lab. I don't know that the administration can investigate this, particularly since they've shut down the previous administration's investigation. So I'm worried that they're trying to cover up the government's involvement, our government's involvement in funding this research.
Let's bring in Arkansas Senator Tom Cotton, member of the Senate Armed Forces and Judiciary Committees. I want to talk about the media aspect of this, and especially going back last year and pull something up that shows what you were talking about a year ago and how you were criticized. But let me ask you, do you agree with what Rand Paul just said in terms of the possible cover-up by the NIH?
Yeah, Dana, I hope Tony Fauci gives some straight answers today for once. Look, it's a matter of public record that the NIH spent hundreds of thousands of dollars in these Wuhan labs, and the Wuhan labs were doing gain-of-function research to make coronaviruses more contagious and more dangerous. So they need to come clean with the American people. They need to stop playing word games. They need to explain why they funded that research, apparently in violation of at least the spirit, if not the letter, of an Obama White House directive.
Dr. Fauci has said in the past that the gain of function was not something that was authorized to do in that lab. Does that matter?
Well, if that's the case, they need to answer why their oversight of their grants is so sloppy. I mean, again, they gave hundreds of thousands of dollars indirectly to these Wuhan labs. The infamous Bat Lady, the Chinese scientist who investigated these bat coronaviruses, openly thanked Dr. Fauci's agency in her research. If they didn't know what their money or what our money, our taxpayer money, was funding, then they need to answer why they have such lax oversight on their grant processes.
All right, let's talk about the media. So Glenn Kessler is the Washington Post fact checker. He wrote this about you recently. He said, Senator Tom Cotton, from the start, pointed to the lab's location in Wuhan, pressing China for answers, so the history books will reward him if he turns out to be right. The reason he wrote that is because if you look at all these past headlines from a year and a half ago or so, Tom Cotton is playing a dangerous game. He repeats fringe theory and on and on. And now that they have a little bit more information, and now that President Trump isn't in office and maybe with a little bit more clear eyes, this is now a real possibility. And so it's about time, right?
Well, Dana, I'm not looking for any awards from the mainstream media, and I'll let history sort things out for itself. What matters most to me is that the American people get answers. Was the Chinese government responsible for unleashing the worst pandemic in a century on the world through a combination of its negligence in these labs and then its deceitfulness in covering it all up? Could it have stopped this pandemic much earlier if they had been open and transparent from the very beginning in late 2009 and early 2020 about what had happened in those laboratories? That's why we need to demand answers. That's why we need a credible investigation, not another whitewash by the World Health Organization.
Okay, I also wanted to ask you about this. John Cena is, of course, a actor, a former wrestler. He apologized to China in Mandarin for suggesting that Taiwan was a country. Watch.
我有一个错误，我必须说，现在就是很重要。我爱更尊重中国，更中国人。我很抱歉对我的错误，对不起，我很抱歉。
So he's very, very sorry, and he sincerely apologizes. What do you think of this?
It's very disappointing. It's just one more example of how the China lobby in American society continues to try to lobby for China's interest against America's interest. You know, Hollywood is deep in China's pocket. When was the last time you saw a Chinese bad guy in a movie? Unlike, say, the Soviets. That's because Hollywood wants access to the Chinese market and to Chinese money. But it's almost everywhere in society, Dana. You know, university presidents come and lobby us all the time because they want more full freight tuition paying Chinese nationals to come to their country. So many companies like hotel companies or airline companies refuse to list Taiwan in their drop down menu because of Chinese pressure. Just one more disappointing example of how the China lobby bends American policy in China's favor.
Tom Cotton, have a great week. Thank you.